How long has it been since I mentioned that I'm not a fan of California? This whole state just drives me crazy. I'm just not a fan of it. Reduce speed limits so you can only go 55 miles an hour while everybody speeds past you at like 70. I mean, granted, this is a state that's dedicated to beauty. That's all they care about. As long as it's beauty that's skin deep, that's all they care about. They don't care about the workings and the functionality of the state. Whatever. I'll save my my rant for another time, I guess. Oh, man. It's been a fun few days. And yes, I'm in California. That's why I mentioned it. The last time you saw me, I was in Salina, Kansas, not Texas. What is Texas? Now, the following morning, I hit the road. It was, I think, just after midnight. I had tried something that evening, and when I was in Salina, Kansas, I decided I was going to try the white chocolate peppermint hot chocolate at the Pilot. And I used $2.11 of my points. And I think that was well spent. Now, sure, I can look at it now and say, man, I shouldn't have spent that $2.11. What else am I doing? I have plenty of points now. Back only 4 months ago when I started this, I didn't have enough points or shower power to take a shower. So I was just, staying back there and intentionally not showering for a few days because I was refusing to pay for it. You start a new job, you don't really have all the money that you want to spend on everything. And I know people are always like, well, it's a write-off. Well, here's the thing. Companies like Schneider can write things off. So it'd be nice if they gave us a little stipend. Or if we were stuck someplace or stuck in a city, maybe if they even gave us $30 a week towards parking. Or gave us $20 a week as just a help expense thing or something. Gave us something else because, the wheels are turning, you're not earning, as they say. And right now, I am kind of in a situation that I'll get to. Okay, so I got up in the morning. I don't want to turn this into another gripe session about things I wish Schneider's was doing because I'm sure that a lot of trucking companies did the same thing. And Schneider does a lot of things right. And I'm sure that the frustrations I have are few and far between. And you could say, well, it's just because you don't know better. You don't know other companies. Yeah, that's true. I don't know any other companies. I've only ever worked for Schneider. And there's some things I would like to see different. But for the most part, I'm not going to bellyache about it. Again, not going to get off on a tangent. Okay. So, Salina, Kansas, I got up at 11:30 at night, something like that, whatever it was. And I hit the road, I think around midnight. Maybe it was a little after that, I don't remember. No, it was about midnight. No, it was maybe a little after, I don't know. Anyway, what I do know is I did not have to go and spend 30 minutes doing something else in order to unlock my last 3 hours for driving. I didn't have to do that, which is nice. All right, so I hit the road. No, I just now remembered. I hit the road around 3 a.m. The reason I know it was about around 3 a.m. is because of what happened at 3:30. 3:30 a.m. and this is Eastern time, and I was actually, was I in Central? I might have been in Mountain Time by then. So in which case it was 1:30. Whatever time it was. Leaving Salina, Kansas, it was early in the morning. I think it was around 1:30 when this happened, and because it's 3:30 a.m. Eastern time. Before I continue to just question existence, here's what happens. At 3:30 a.m. we get a new fuel solution. That's when Schneider sends you a fuel assignment and they say you must stop here. Mandatory, no questions asked. Non-negotiable is the terms that they use. So I was looking at this, and the fuel solution came up because the day before it said stop in East St. Louis, Illinois, and then 400 miles later stop in Salina, Kansas. Well, I was already going to Salina, Kansas, so I was like, really, I got to stop at another place. And then I was like, oh, look, that happens to be the truck stop I picked out is the one I'm going to stop at. So I went ahead and fueled up, and then I parked. That's when I did the last vlog. Now I hit the road, and about half an hour later, new fuel assignment added. And I look at it because it pops up on the screen. You can't click it because if you do that, the screen locks. But it puts up a little message there that you can hit the little X and cancel. And it's wanting me to fuel up at Salina, Kansas again, where I just left. It's now about 30 minutes behind me. By the time I turn around, it would be 30 miles behind me. I'm not about to do that. So if you work for Schneider and you're not happy with the fuel solution it gives you because it makes no sense and you want it to clear, if you go to workflow, up at the top it says update fuel levels. Click that with the truck on and then continue driving. It will do some calculations, it'll think about things, and it will usually pop up something that says fuel solution removed. And if it wants you to add another fuel solution and go someplace else, it will update it. I had this happen. I hit the update fuel levels, about a month ago, because I was going from New Jersey and I did not like the fuel stop it sent me. It was sending me, I wanted to stop. It was actually the day before Thanksgiving. That's when it was. I was headed down south out of New Jersey and I wanted to go up until the point when traffic was going to start slowing me down. I wanted to get a little closer to Maryland at first, and it was saying to go to Northeast Maryland. And I was looking at it saying I might want to push a little bit farther and get to the other side of Baltimore. And so I hit the fuel solutions button saying, I really don't want to stop, because if you go to Northeast Maryland, then you have to get off on an exit. You have to go these little, a couple of side things, and it can be kind of crowded. So you have to sit in the line. At the time I was there. But when I hit the fuel solution button, it sent me instead to my favorite truck stop in the area, the one at Carney's Point. At first, I thought it was sending me to the one on the other side of the interstate. And, the bridge that connects the two sides of the interstate is closed. And it's been closed for the past 4 months that I've been on this driving. And it's annoying because the GPS doesn't know that. It will try to send you right across it and say, just go over there. You can't. You have to take all these back roads in order to get there. But it was sending me to the truck stop I like, with a lot of parking. So I went ahead and fueled up and went over there. And so when it updated my fuel solution that time, it was pretty cool because I could just go there, fuel up, and then park. In this case, hitting the update fuel solution button, it removed that one and it told me to fuel up someplace else. And I was like, that's cool. I appreciate that. It was actually not behind me this time, 30 miles behind me. I don't want to end up having to get into a conversation because it's in the middle of the night. It's in the middle of the night and when I'd like to drive, and I would end up having to call the DTLs and say, hey, it gave me a fuel solution that was behind me. I don't want to end up going back for it. And it happens to be the same exact truck stop that I fueled up at before I went to sleep. So literally the truck had like 3 or 4 gallons down. Probably 5 gallons. 8 times 4 is 32. So less than 4 gallons down. I don't need to stop at a fuel stop if I've only been driving for 4 gallons since the last fuel up. So, and I don't want to have to call the DTLs and say, I don't agree with your fuel solution and go there because, guess what? There's other fuel solutions it can give you. So I hit the update fuel levels, and Schneider may not want you to do that. Reserve it, save it for certain times, like the day before Thanksgiving. The reason I hit that is because I did not want to get caught in traffic. I only had like 12 hours left, and I had to maximize the time not driving in rush hour traffic. So that meant that I didn't want to have a fuel solution that was going to be out of my way. And as soon as I hit the button and it changed me to Carney's Point, I'm like, you know what? This is the universe telling me to stop there. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and stop there, and not the one in Northeast Maryland that has smaller parking spaces. Well, it's got smaller forward room when you're pulling out. You have to go forward all the way, trying to make your turn, and then you have to back out on an angle and then pull it around. Kind of annoying. Whatever. So in this case, when I hit the update fuel levels, it gave me another truck stop that was in a better place. It was in front of me. And it was also, it was closer to my stop. Now, considering that there was a storm moving in, And that storm, I think, was there the day before I did the last vlog. So and I was looking at it and talking about it, I think, on that vlog, because it was going to hit the kind of Denver, Colorado area. Driving out that way early in the morning, I don't want to say run into things, because it's a bad thing to say as a trucker, but I did run into a little bit of snow, a little bit of wispiness that just kind of came in and circled around and disappeared, and then it would come back and then it would disappear again. It wasn't really bothering me, but it did make me turn off my headset, the thing I told you about, that I can just press the button and then go quiet. Because as soon as I saw that, I started focusing, because the temperature was about 38 degrees. And the last thing in the world I wanted to do is be in a situation where trucks start crunching the snow into the dry road and turn it into ice. So I turned off all the things I was listening to and just concentrated on every single aspect. Now you could say, well, you should be focused on the road. Absolutely. No matter what. I am. But I don't mind listening to a little comedy show or music or something. Especially if it's in the middle of the night and there's no trucks anywhere near me. You know what I will tell you, though, that makes you kind of, your heart go up into your chest for a second, is tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds look like, when you see them, you see it, it's a blurry looking thing because it's blowing really fast, but it's also got a lot of air in it. So it's this, you know what a tumbleweed is. It's a big thing that looks like it's made out of, like, you know, a weave. And it goes flying onto the road right in front of me, and I'm like, all I can see is the thing about 50 feet away, and it comes literally the phrase that says coming out of nowhere is overused. And a lot of people who say it's coming out of nowhere, it means they weren't paying attention. But I'm looking down the road, and all of a sudden it catches my eye in the headlights, and then all I can do is brace quick enough, because you don't turn your wheel on a truck, because you do, and you could jackknife or send it off. And then as soon as I hit it, I said, oh, that was a tumbleweed. I'd hope it's not stuck in the air vent in the front, but you know, that's when, as soon as you hit something like that, you start looking in the back mirrors and see if you see it flying away. I didn't. And I looked at it and said, you know what, I'm right around the corner from my next stop anyway, so might as well go ahead and just continue the last couple of miles until I get there. America in the month of December, with all the Christmas lights and stuff as you're driving along, looks really pretty. Sorry, it's raining. So that's what you're hearing. But it is kind of interesting when you're driving in the middle of the night, because when the weather starts dropping, your windshield freezes. Now, I have, because it was 38 for a while. I do remember, now that I think about it, it did get down to below freezing. It got down to, I think, as low as 28 while I was driving. But when it was down to 28, it wasn't raining or snowing. But I did, occasionally what I'll do is I will hit the windshield wiper just to clear it off. And when I did that, I noticed that the water, even though it's supposed to be, it's set for like negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. You do that, and and your windshield wipers wipe it a little bit, but then the windshield kind of starts to kind of almost haze a little bit. And it's like, wait a minute now. You're not supposed to do that. We're 50 degrees off of your freezing point. But that little film of moisture that collects on the window started to do that. So as soon as I ended up turning on my heater full blast on the front windshield, and after about a minute or two, I was getting hot, and I went ahead and did it again and used the windshield wipers until I heard the squeaking noise, and then after that it was gone. So then I restored the temperature the way it should be. But when it rains, the same thing happens. So that's something to be aware of. When it rains, if it's freezing and your windshield wipers are working, it might freeze to your window unless you keep it hot, unless you run some heat up on your windows. So keep that in mind, because that's a little something to keep in mind as well. So I got to Aurora, Colorado, and that Pilot or Flying J, whichever I stopped at, it was packed. Traffic, truck-wise. And I had time left, so it's like an hour and a half left on my 8-hour clock. before I have to stop. So I circled around the lot until, because it's first thing in the morning, someone's going to pull out and leave. I only had to circle around like 2 or 3 times. And then I saw a parking space that was not occupied a moment before, and I backed into it, and then I shut down. Shut down at 8 a.m. This is one of the annoying things about Sundays on the Pods account, is that nothing's open. So I had to wait until Monday. And so basically I just shut down there and hung out in the truck stop for, 21 hours. Didn't do anything. Got up the next morning, pre-tripped it, and went to my my stop to drop off, and I broke all the straps that for the pods I was offloading, and I was waiting for them to arrive, and they had a hard time getting in the door. It was like a lock it wasn't turning or something. Finally they got inside and got the forklift out. Now that's not all that interesting, because eventually I got out of there. What is interesting is that when I got to Colorado, there was a weather event still going on. Not currently, but that storm that I mentioned that was bad, it seemed to just hover over the Vail Pass west of Denver. And it pulled a number on the mountain pass out there. Now the GPS, the new GPS, was telling me, just go straight 70 west and then take a road north and get to Salt Lake City. No. Not when I'm looking at the traffic reports and it is completely red. Not when I go to the Colorado DOT, which is, I think, cotrip.org. That's the website they want you to use. You put in your starting and ending cities or address, and it will tell you your route. And when you look at this and it says chain law in effect, and you look at their traffic and it's like dark blood red, cars are all over. That the cars and trucks, are going slow, and the trucks are having to pull over and chain up their tires and stuff like that. Now, one of the things I have done is I've looked at all the videos. I've watched multiple videos on different solutions and how to do it. And I feel confident with it. As a matter of fact, I even pulled the chains out of the back and I brought them up here into the truck, which I don't recommend doing because it makes everything very greasy. The grease, I guess, is just because on the inside of the bag, the chains kind of have something on there, it's almost like a slime. It's like oil. But when I put it on the ground, of the inside of the truck here, I realized when I was handling the chains, the stuff was getting all over my hands because I wouldn't wear my gloves, and I was like, well, that was a mistake. But I thought since I was opening up a fresh bag full of these chains, there wasn't going to be anything on it. Well, I was mistaken. But anyway, I checked it. I wanted to make sure everything was intact and that I had an understanding of what I should be doing and how and that kind of stuff. And I did. It just makes sense. You got to make sure that the chains, go up like a ladder. The cross member chains, they're held on with little hooks that come over like this. Well, don't face them downwards into your tire. Face them away from the tire, so outwards. That's one thing. When you put them on there, push them all the way to the inside of the tire and make sure it's on that inside rim, and then pull it back until it's even. Don't just throw it over there and expect it to be there. Push it over kind of overwards. And I'm just talking about the single tire, not the dual tire chains, the 3s. Things like that. There's tutorials on YouTube and people that I've learned from, so watch those same videos and you'll know everything I'm telling you. You probably know it already and you're saying, oh, geez, you're such a fool. You need to be doing this. Everyone has different solutions. All right, got familiar with the chains, but the next morning I got up a little on the early side. I was right around the corner, 3.4 miles away from the place I was going. And instead of me trying to plan to get there at 6 a.m., which a lot of these, pods places aren't open and start servicing semis at 6, but I get there early and then I just shut down and go off the clock if I need to until they're ready. I don't like to be the third, fourth, whatever truck in line and then end up waiting there for hours or hour, depending on how fast they are. But one of the things I was doing is looking at the weather, and I started to see the chain law was in effect. The temperature there in the Vail Pass was like 20 something. Everything was still snowy. I was looking at the cameras and seeing vehicles move very slowly. They were moving very slowly, and there was few and far between, and it looked like it was actively snowing, even though I could have sworn that the snow was gone by then. But on the camera, it looked like it was hazy in the air. The trucks and the cars were going very slow, and you could only see on each camera no more than one truck and one car at any given time. I was like, look, if it's going that slow, I don't need to be part of that. especially considering that you can go from Colorado here to Salt Lake City here, either through the mountains and up, or up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and then straight over Wyoming into Utah. Now that route is 45 miles or so longer, but there's a lot less drama. There is not going to be the chain law I have to go through. It's not going to be any craziness from traffic. Oh, and by the way, another fun thing that I remember seeing is that morning, right? I was checking, while I was waiting for the pods people to since I already broken the straps and everything, I was just waiting for them to come by there and pull it. I was checking the roads. And one other thing, I looked at it and said, it might be an adventure. It might be kind of cool to put this camera right here and see me chaining up. That might be kind of fun. But then I said, you know what? As fun as that sounds, when I noticed that there were 2 car crashes in the chain up areas, one of them looked like on the map it was right in a chain up area, and the other one was like leading up to one. I looked at it and said, you know what? The last thing in the world I want to do is end up competing with other trucks for the chain up area, which you then have to wait until a spot clears up, and then you have to offset back into that spot or parallel park, whatever. Not to mention, after you're done with your wait, it could be 30, 45 minutes until a spot opens up, depending on how many trucks there are. But if cars are driving like fools around there, the last thing in the world I want to do is be out, halfway underneath a tire trying to get the thing straight, only for a car to not see me and crash, run over me, or do something stupid, or maybe just lose traction control, saying, oh yeah, I have snow tires on, and they don't. They have all season, and then they fly into you. When I saw there was a car crash in what looked like a chain up area on their map, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So that's when I said, you know what, I think Schneider would prefer me to get there on time and safely, since they always talk about the safety aspect. So I went ahead and headed north. And I looked at the Wyoming DOT website, because Wyoming has a reputation for, oh, there's some sprinkles, let's shut down I-80. So I looked at it and I said, well, is there going to be any problems? Well, I looked at the DOT website, and it showed only a little area of it. The state was green. Everything else was red. And I looked at the warnings, and it was heavy wind. And it was saying that if you have they were going to have up to 70 plus mile an hour winds. And if you had a closed trailer or a closed van and it weighed less than 50,000 pounds, I-80 was closed to you. Well, I'm driving a flatbed. I would have already dropped 2 pods. There was only 1 pod on there. And I drive an open flatbed, so it was open to me. So when I stopped at the fuel, not the fuel stop, I got pulled into the weigh station. They had to see my IFTA and my registration. No biggie, hit the road again. I had to do a load securement check anyway, so it worked out. And then I started heading west on I-80. Now, one of the things that was interesting is that I was having no problems. I mean, the truck, in 70 mile an hour winds, it does blow around a little bit, but you're focused and paying attention and that kind of stuff. I wasn't listening to anything. It was just a focused drive the entire time without any music or anything like that. I had the CB radio on, but wasn't a whole lot of chatter on. But heading out west in the 70 plus mile an hour winds area, there were 2 trucks I saw that were not on the road, right as there was some bad gusts going on. One of them had jackknifed all the way around. So it was like an angle that was beyond right angle, and it was off the side of the interstate on my right side. And so I looked at that and I said, that's not good. And then I drove about another half a mile and I saw a bobtail, and then about 100 feet behind it was a trailer that had disconnected because it was in the grass between the 2 sides. He apparently had been blown off into the grass, started bouncing down the hill that was like this kind of an angle, and in that process it disconnected the trailer, and his tractor continued on. But the trailer, it burst open on the top, and we could see what was in there. There was barely anything in there. Buddy did not have a trailer that weighed a tractor-trailer combination unit that weighed over 50,000 pounds. If I were to guess, I'd say he probably had closer to about 10,000 in the back. So when you see those advisories that tell you if you are underweight, don't go through this heavy wind, take it slow, certain speeds are recommended, trust it. Trust the process. These people aren't telling you that because they want you to drive, extra slow just to make you mad. They're not telling you that because they want to keep you from doing your job. They're telling you because there's a safety-related concern to be aware of. So anyway, I got all the way to the Welcome Center that was just inside of Utah. Now, a friend of mine lives in that area. And I had reached out to him already and said I was going to be there. So he came by to pick me up. But I tell you, those exits are far away, some of them. And so you have to go down to the next exit, turn around to get back on that to come back to the Welcome Center. Little did I realize the Welcome Center was about 20 miles from the next exit. So my friend, who didn't live very far from where I was parked for the night, because I picked such a bad spot, but when it was after work is when he finally called me. He says, why don't you drive down to this, there's a truck stop that almost never has anybody in it right around the corner from me. And I said, there's one problem. That truck stop is how far? He says, it's about 25 minutes from where you are. And I looked at my 14-hour clock, and I was sitting at 18 minutes because he was at work and he was still, it was the end of the day. So anyway, my 14-hour clock prevented me from driving down to some place that was convenient. Anyway, I got a chance to meet my friend. Then when we turned around and went back, it was, we were talking. Anyway, though. Now, at that point, though, when I landed for the day, pre-assignment, pick up in Lehi, Utah, and go to McClellan, California. It looks like I was going to be driving the Donner Pass for the first time ever. I've driven a car on I-80 from Salt Lake, so I never went down. I never went, down into Colorado before, but I-80 doesn't go in Colorado. But I took I-80 from Salt Lake City, and I went across and then down, going back home on a road trip like 10 years ago. But in this case, I was really pleased because it was keeping me moving. Schneider was keeping me moving with assignments. Now, at the time of this recording, there's not a whole lot of people wanting to move to the northwest part of America right now because it is so friggin' cold. Even though we're technically in a heat spell right now, people don't want to plan to move in the middle of that bad weather when it could be down to negative 20 degrees in some areas. And that just happens to be where I am right now because I got up the next morning. I dropped off at the location in Lehi, Utah. And it took a little while for the forklift guy to come in. Finally, when he came in there, I had already broken the straps and gotten my paperwork signed. I was like, can you just grab this pod and I'm out of here? Because I had to pick up in Salt Lake City and pick up 3 red tags. These have to be, I guess, destroyed or recycled or something like that. Green tags are empties that are good. Red tags are, you don't have to do the gypsy moth form or anything like that on there. But you just, I guess they're going to be decommissioned. They're bad condition or something like that. It's going to be destroyed. I don't know exactly. I do know it's empty, though. And it's not a green tag, which could be used. So it's red tag, I'm guessing. Destroyed. Scrap metaled, whatever. So I started, I loaded up out of Salt Lake. I started driving and I'll tell you this, that drive going across Utah is boring. And then you go into Nevada and it is boring. Not a whole lot to see. Except things far, far away that take an hour for you to get there. It looks like it's not too far. You drive 20 minutes, you're like, it still looks like it's just as far away. You drive 20 more minutes, you're like, it's still just as far away. These deserts, I tell you. Anyway, I shut down at a Casino Pilot or Flying J in, where was that? It was Fernley, Nevada. I was going to go to Wasamucca, something like that. Waccamucca, I think it is. Or Waccamucca, I don't remember. It's something like that. But there was a Flying J Pilot there. But I was anticipating getting out of the Salt Lake City area with traffic by about 10 a.m. and then driving out that direction. And then I was expecting to hit Pacific time zone closer to California. So I wasn't expecting the time zone to jump. But as I was driving, I got out of Salt Lake a little bit earlier. So when I got on the road from Lehigh, it didn't take me very long to get to Salt Lake. And then by the time I got there, guy was kind of slow, but I got loaded up and I was out of there before 9. So I went to the fuel assignment that had given me on, about 13 miles away from that pause location. That's fine because, you have to check your load the first 50 miles. Time frame not, allowed, just the first 50 miles. So that was 13 miles. I went ahead and checked my straps and TIV and all that kind of stuff. Then I started heading out west. I had made it to that Wakamusa, whatever it is, exit, and it was barely one. It was like 112, something like that. And I looked at it and said, I could stop now, or I could go ahead and, since I had about 2 hours and 45 minutes left on my 8-hour clock still, because it restarted when I got to Salt Lake City because it took them over 30 minutes to load me. So I had a full 8 hours, and I was driving and I looked at it and says, I've only driven like 5.5 hours or so, not even, out of Salt Lake City. So I'm going to keep on going. And so I just continued on out there until, I got to that exit, the Fernley exit in Nevada, which is a casino, a Denny's, and a Pilot or a Flying J all in one. Kind of cool. The things you see when you're out west, I tell you. There was one time I saw a sign. I went to the restroom at this one Pilot I was filling up in the early morning, and there was a lot of like commodes. There was a lot of stalls for guys to be in. Every single one of them was occupied, and because there was a couple of guys standing around to use them. And when you exited that, you look at this sign and it says McDonald's Casino. The McDonald's logo where it says casino, and it says casino under that in an arrow. I was like, McDonald's Casino, that's kind of cool. It was 2 different places, but they're both the same direction. Thought that was kind of funny. Should have taken a picture of that sign. Anyway. So, shut down yesterday in Fernley. I'm glad I did because that gave me exactly, not exactly. It was like 16 some odd hours, but then by the time I looked at the estimate, I said, by the time I get there and offload and stuff, it'll be 9 a.m. at that pod's location. I will have about 12 hours left on my clock. When I submitted my ETAs, I said originally it'll be 9 hours left. Then I looked at it and says, I can update this, and it was 10 hours left. And then I looked at it again last night and I said, you know what, it's 12, but I'm not going to send an updated ETA because by the time I get there and offload, it'll be too late to update that. I did send a message and said, am I on the list to get another load? And they said, yes, you are. Cool. So there ends up being across from the McClellan, I can pronounce it, I promise, truck stop, Pod's location. Right across the street, there's a gravel lot. There was 2 trucks over there waiting for loads, 2 flatbeds. So I saw a gap. I went ahead and pulled on over there and just hung out. And I was like, you know what? This is going to be fine. I'm just going to hang out, waiting for a load. Most of the time, loads come to you between the 10:30 and roughly 11:30 a.m. hour Eastern time. So being that I was in California, I was expecting to receive a load, hopefully already. But I said, you know what? I'm going to sit around here for a bit. And I didn't receive a load all day, sitting right there. So after sitting there 5 hours, another one of the flatbed drivers behind me was a Schneider one, so I went over and talked to him a little bit. He looked like he was about to leave. It ends up being the electrical line going from his truck to his trailer. He saw it was fried. He saw some it had shorted out or something like that, and some of the lights on his trailer were not working. So he's like, "There's a Pilot around the corner. I'm going to stop there." Here's one of the things that's kind of frustrating, and this is where I am right now. The Pilot or Flying J, whatever it is, in Sacramento. There's only one. Paid parking, $20, and you cannot use points. It's cash only, or not cash only, but you have to pay the $20. Unless you want to spend $50 inside. And you can't use points, or for what he said, yeah, you can't use points and spend $50 worth of points inside in order to try to get free parking. That doesn't work, is what he told me. But he was going to go in, eat at the restaurant with his wife, because his wife was driving with him, was riding with him. And he says, and we were saying in this economy, it doesn't take a whole lot for you to rack up, $50 worth of charges or whatever at Denny's or whatever the restaurant is. And if you don't end up happen to have a full, if you don't end up having at the end of the thing a full tab, $40 let's say in food, then you go inside the Pilot and you get yourself something, a cup, shirt, something. Or you could get $75 for the fuel. But because this is California, and this is not a recommended or fuel stop that Schneider wants me to go to, I can't do that. You might be saying, you know what? Screw the company. Go ahead and do it anyway. I'm not going to. And part of the reason also is that I have, because the fuel solutions have been so good about keeping me topped off, I probably could, if I filled up right now, I might only take like 60 gallons of fuel. I'm just barely below 3/4 of a tank because of my fuel up yesterday. Remember, it was on the road, and then I didn't stop at that. It was from Salt Lake City. I stopped after only like 4 or 5 hours. And going straight along the flat plane, well, it's not really flat, it goes up and down. But I have come to learn that, if you press the gas pedal in, it doesn't matter if you're going up or downhill, it's going to pretty much maintain 65 miles an hour. But if you use cruise control and you press the speed up plus res button over here on the cruise control, the truck will continue to accelerate when you're going down a hill. It won't just cap out at 65. If you are on a level or going, uphill or something like that, it might maintain, it might go down to 64. But that's generally what it will do anyway. If you're on a flat area and you're going 64 and you press it, it may say, look, we're going fast enough. Then you have to hit the gas a little bit to get it to go up there over 65. Or to 65, not over 65. But going down a hill, if you're standing on the gas, unless you're going down a really steep grade, which you don't want to accelerate on, it will normally maintain 65 unless you're pressing that button. Then it will go up to about 67, and then sometimes it will level out at the bottom and then maintain that 67, 68, whatever, and it will just continue to go in a straight line, and maintain that, which is nice. Because these trucks are designed to go faster. They're just governed. But that's a little hack that if you work for Schneider and you're in at least an international LT, this is a 2024, it might work for you, it might not. I don't know. If you're driving a Cascadia, different creature. So I waited out front that location the entire day, and then at like 2 something, it was like just after 2, I was talking to that other truck driver, and he says, I'm going to that Pilot over there, and he says he was going to go in there with his wife, he'd get food, then grab something else to make the $50. That way he wouldn't have to technically go out of pocket, because we were talking about it, and he and his wife are on the road. So they don't really, have to, he said that they don't really have their house anymore back home. Well, I take that back. He said they have a place they live, but he says he doesn't own his place. So whatever that happens to be. So it could be a rental. It could be, I can't imagine you renting, because he says he's normally on the road for at least 4 weeks. He says we're supposed to stay out for 3 weeks, but I like going out for at least 4, sometimes up to 6, maybe sometimes more. But since my wife's with me, we're fine. If you don't have to go home, the only time you go home is for your mental releases. Like, he says he goes fishing. Lives in the Florida Panhandle. So in that case, I guess if you don't really have to go home, or you just basically, you're living with someone whenever you go home. For all I know, he was living in his parents' house. He was an older fella. He's probably older than me. He was probably my age, 40s. But if you're going to be living on the road in your truck and you just go back from time to time, having a friend with a guest room that you can just put your call home or whatever might be an economical solution for you if you don't want to live if you don't have a house and you don't want to do rentals. I mean, geez, if I didn't have a family I was supporting and it was just me on doing this on the road, I might just put my stuff in storage or just start selling stuff off, seeing what all I can get down to, live minimalistically, And that means getting rid of a whole bunch of sentimental things. But really, do I need to hold on to the 4-decade-old trophies I got from baseball and soccer? No. My partner said, take a picture of it, then toss it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't need to hold on to this stuff forever. So I took some pictures and then I threw them away. It's one of those things where when you're a kid, it means a lot to you. You know, you get a trophy for participation in soccer for a season or whatever. You get a trophy. And then you're like, whoa, this baseball trophy is taller than the one last year. You feel really good about it. But then after a while, all you do is move it around as an adult. And you don't need to hold on to all that stuff. It served its purpose, gave you confidence as a kid, made you feel good about your work as on the team and all your blood, sweat, and tears or whatever. And then after that, you don't really need to hold on to it anymore. And if so, just hold on to the pictures. Because it doesn't really make sense to hold on to it in a box just to pull it out and show it to your kid that isn't going to care. They're going to say, oh, cool. Look, another thing from the 80s you're showing me, Dad. Great. But yeah, that might be something that if I ended up, if I ever ended up not having a family, or my family just did not want to have anything to do with me, or they were just too busy, and I mean, for all I know, they could scatter. They could all just go in different areas, different places in the world. And if that's the case, it would be kind of cool, to get rid of all expenses and live in a truck. At that point, though, you might as well be an owner-operator. You can be a company driver if you want. If you got a sweet deal, then yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, it wouldn't be Schneider under the terms that I'm currently working under. Because, like, today I didn't get a job. Now, I looked at Trucker Path, which is a great app. The feature that I like the most is when you click parking, it shows you the places you can park. Well, one of them that's pretty close to that Pods location was just going on west on 80, then going north on Interstate 5, and we're talking like it's 12 miles. No, I think it was 13. But there was a rest area. Now, granted, it's coming back south on 5, so you just go down to the next exit, then you turn right, you loop around, you turn right again, you turn back on the interstate, you come back the other way. And I did this. But wouldn't you know, California being California just has to mess with me. So what did they decide to do? Close the rest area. There were some vehicles already in there, but they had closed the rest area, and then they were doing, and there was like an RV, and there was, some other stuff. But they were just blowing it out, leaf blowers, and they were, doing maintenance out there. So all that kind of stuff could have been done if it was open, but they just decided to close it. So there went my free solution. The parking lot there, because there were people saying, oh, it's fine, it's good, good lot, and there were people that were saying some parking full, whatever. At this point, I was like, fine, the only other parking place, unless I wanted to drive back up to the Donner Pass, or I wanted to drive 45 miles south into Lodi, California, and then there was a free parking space. There was a free parking down there for Pilot, but considering I have 12 hours left on my clock, if I want to drive an hour down there and then an hour drive back. Plus, here's the other aspect. If there is a freight shortage and people aren't really moving into the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, whatever, I have like 12 hours left. As of right this second, I have 10 hours and 55 minutes because it took me an hour in a little bit of traffic to go up to that rest area and then to come into this parking lot because it was jammed up back there. And at the fuel pump, and then there was a queue getting in the gate. And by the time you got in the gate and parked, there goes an hour and 5 minutes. So tomorrow I have 11 hours, just under, to do something. And when I say to do something, that means if I pick up a load, it's I'm not pre-assigned, so I can't get a load until tomorrow morning. If it comes through at, let's say, 10:30 or 11 a.m., then at the normal time, that would be Eastern time. So that would mean 7:30 to 8 a.m. here. Now, what I normally will do is I'll go ahead and pre-trip the truck. So that way, the second, and then I'll shut back down again. So that way, the second I am ready to go, I can go and do something. Tomorrow, I'm not going to do that though. You may ask why. I've been on the list. I've turned in my ETAs. I've done my job. But it's slow. Because it is slow, if I don't have a load by tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. California time, I'll start getting, what is it? What do you call it? Detention pay? That wasn't the word he used. Layover pay. And because I'm waiting for a load and there's not very many loads up here, the other trucker that was a Schneider guy, he was sitting there waiting for something. And he was waiting there longer than me. When I pulled up to offload, it was like 8 something. I was out there, shut down by 9, before 9. My ETA was at 9 a.m. and I went ahead and pulled in there, parked, went inside, checked in, came and broke all my straps. He came and offloaded me, and I got out there and it's still not 9 a.m. I beat my ETA again. But I sat around there for 5 hours off the clock, not doing anything except twiddling my thumbs, waiting for a job that did not come. And if I would have thought about it, I would have come on over here to this, or at least try to get to the rest area, even though the rest area you don't normally want to stay at for overly long. But who knows? I could have been one of the vehicles inside because they may have just closed down that parking, the rest area for maintenance or for whatever. And I might have gotten in there because you could leave. You just couldn't get in because they put cones in the way. But might as well wait there, 20 minutes away. It would have been free if I could have gotten in. But then if I came here because it was closed at that point, then what would have happened? Well, you get 0 to 4 hours free. So I could maintain 4 miles an hour, pull out of the gate and say, thanks guys, and then turn around and go in the gate the other side again and get a new ticket. But then I would have to do that routinely over the course of the night and just never exceed 4 miles an hour. And the exit is on a different side of the building from the entrance. So they're probably, they probably would know that as you're going to leave, you can't just do a hard U-turner and go back in and get a new ticket and say, oh, I realized I left something. What would you leave in the parking space? Anyway, it's not legit. It's not a nice thing to do. Technically, I know that California is an expensive state. Truck stops and stuff are allowed to do whatever they want, and that includes charging for parking. And we should actually count our blessings that with as much as property costs now and everything costs now, they're still giving us free parking in all these places. But then it would also be nice if companies would give us a stipend towards free towards parking if like Flying J and Pilot and Loves just all came together and said, you know what, we should start charging for parking everywhere. That may happen eventually. But at that point, it would be worthwhile for companies like Schneider to say, you know what? Your EFS card, you can use your EFS card. If Pilot and Flying J were to say, okay, well, we're going to add on the ability for you to pay for parking that's reserved. Or, the parking if it was no longer free. This is the first time I've had to park and pay since my very first load in Theodore, Alabama, 4 months ago. So I'm probably doing all right. You may say, well, that's just a $20 receipt. Just deduct it. Well, if you don't own property, we sold our house last year, put all that money in equity, was hoping that, we put all of the profit we made from selling the house into a bank account that we were using, we were going to save and put down on a new place. Ended up getting very slow in my old line of work, and we ended up having to start dipping into that. And by the time I started making my regular amount with, Schneider, the amount that I make, we had chewed through so much of that equity. It sucks. Actually, it's pretty much, savings is pretty much non-existent now because of the size of my family and the expenses we have, especially medical and insurance. Car insurance is $700 a month because I have a teenager. Jeez. How annoying. But you know what? You got to do what you got to do, right? You know what? Since I just mentioned, I'm going to mention one more thing because I'm kind of current as of right now. People keep talking about, oh, we need to raise minimum wage. Now, stay with me for a second. Raise minimum wage, that's the solution? No, the solution is to lower the cost of living. Everyone says raise wages. Well, which goes up quicker? Wages, which are normally increased by 3% per year, or the cost of living? People always saying we need to make a living wage. Well, if you make a living wage now, it's going to be what, 20 some odd dollars as of the time of this video? But then as soon as everyone starts making 20 some odd dollars, companies are going to raise up their prices, and not just by 3% or whatever it is. They're going to raise it up an astronomical amount. One of my friends from 2021 to 2022, they increased his rent in his apartment by 40%, and then the following year 30%. So it went up 70% in 2 years. He is not making 70% more money, so the solution isn't to raise wages. I mean, you could do that too, but the solution isn't to raise wages, it's to lower the cost of living. Now, I've said for a while that if you want to help out America, you incentivize behavior you want to do, because that's what you do. You incentivize the behavior you want to do, which is why you reward a child that does a good job. If a child is not wanting to do something and you say, look, if you do this, I'll give you an M&M. You know, take a picture, I'll give you an M&M. The kid will take a picture. But if you say, here, have an M&M, you jam it in their mouth and then say, now take your picture, the kid is not going to do it because they've already received the reward. That is called that's called positive reinforcement of negative behavior. Positive reinforcement is rewarding some sort of a behavior. And positive reinforcement of negative behavior is giving a reward to someone that does something you don't like. So a kid that refuses to take their picture, for example, and you jamming candy into their face hoping that they'll do the right thing and take the picture, they're not going to do it. They're going to continue to act up because you keep giving them candy. Well, here's the thing. Government works the same way with what they put their money to. You reward politicians for doing things they like by giving them money. But then politicians will direct that into things that they find to be important for companies. But if they actually cared about us regular people, the people that give them the money that they spend our taxpayer money on, then what would be kind of interesting is if they actually prioritized us maybe and decided that they were going to perhaps lower the cost of living. President Biden said last year, I think it was, inflation's a good thing. No, it's not. President Biden, I don't care if you like him or not, you're wrong on that. Inflation's not a good thing when wages and stuff are not keeping up at the same exact level. Companies are making, having to spend more and more to make a product, and then we're spending more and more to buy it, which means less money goes into our pockets because they're not raising the wages. You end up having a situation that, like the one that we're in right now, where one of the things I've said for a long time is you need to incentivize the behavior you want to do. That means lowering the costs, having the government give tax breaks perhaps to companies that sell diesel fuel. Say, you know what, if you can get your prices down an entire $1 per gallon, then we're going to cut your taxes by 1%, or not 1%, but like 2 or 3%, or you don't have to pay your fuel taxes, or half of it, or you pay half it in fuel taxes or something like that, because there's already a lot in fuel taxes that are paid. We already pay a lot in taxes already. Some states more than others. But and I don't know all the logistics behind it, but they could very easily in the government incentivize bringing down the cost of fuel, bring down the cost on energy in general, bring down those costs, and the rest of the world will follow. They always say trucks move America. There's like 2.8, something like that, million trucks on the road right now in this country, in America. And if that's the case, you want to have them reduce their fuel down to like maybe 80 gallons. 80 gallons a day of use might go down to, maybe almost $100 in the fuel cost, depending on where you are in the country. If you could get that fuel cost down, it would mean that things would cost less. Now you may say, Yeah, but when there's 10,000 items from Amazon on the back of a truck and you're spending, let's say, $4,000 to move it, the cost goes down tremendously. That's true, but it also adds up. It also adds up. And you don't just have to stop at fuel costs. You can also decide you want to incentivize positive behavior in lowering the cost of other things as well. Companies in general, you want to lower your costs. Lower your costs, and if you can get your price of your object down by let's say 25% or 20% or something like that, or have different tiers if you want to. You get like 1% less in taxes if you can get it down 5%, but you can get 3% in taxes if you can get it from 5 to 10 or what. I mean, do some sort of a thing where you're incentivized better. That means that there are many companies that would be doing their very best to try to lower. Now you may say, well, what about small business versus big companies? Big companies are going to have a harder time than small business. Well, you got to incentivize small businesses again. You took away a lot of those incentives during the shutdown of 2020 and shortly thereafter. So it'd be nice to bring back those incentives. The taxes that changed, a lot of those hit small businesses. Shutting down businesses during COVID, that affected a lot of small businesses. We didn't see it until 2021 when a lot of those companies folded because they weren't being helped. Anyway, I'm getting way off tangent. Sorry, I could just rant for hours on this. But my point was where I was going is if I have slightly less than 11 hours left on my clock, and if I do a pre-trip tomorrow, I start my clock. If they don't give me a load tomorrow and I don't get a load till the next day, it would be nice to have a full reset done by then. And that's not going to happen if I do a pre-trip and sit here and wait. And if there's not a lot of work in the Northwest right now, I don't necessarily trust the process. I don't necessarily trust them to send me something tomorrow, especially considering that right now, as of right now, it is 5:37 p.m. Pacific time, which is 8:37 p.m. Eastern time, and I have not received a pre-assignment today. If I don't receive a pre-assignment by tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. my time, I'm not doing a pre-trip. I'm going to sit here in this truck, and granted, I know it's going to cost me over $20 because every up to 24 hours that you spend in this lot is going to tick away another $20. But I'm already here, and I'm already spending money, so you might as well do it. And it'd be nice to not have to spend another day down waiting for a job. If I'm going to be down tomorrow, I might as well be down and spend another $20 to not move and not blow this reset. That way I could be reset, have a full 70 hours, and maybe if I have a full 70 hours, they might say, let's send you back cross country. Because if I can get across country again before the weather, this heat wave that we're in until early December, if I could get back across the country onto the other side of the country before this heat spell goes away, and by heat spell I mean going up to the 30s and 40s, or 50s depending on where you are during the day, that means I'm not going to have to deal with snow out here this time, before Christmas, my time. I know you're watching this in March 2024. Brainstorming though. It'd be nice to get back on my side of the country, the East Coast. And now granted, I know it's going to be potential snow and stuff I'm going to deal with in the north part of America. Hopefully there are not going to be as many people at the very, very top of America. Like normally I'd just gone up as high as New York. And I don't mind it up there. I don't mind going back and forth between New Jersey and Orlando like every 2 days. That's fine. Going the other way across the country out here though, in the snow and whatever, you have to really stay on top of your apps. You have to look at the DOT for those areas, for the areas you're going to be driving in. You need to stay on top of it. Look at it, compare it to the way it was a few hours ago. Look at the weather reports and see where it's going, where it's going to go. I've been looking at AccuWeather and weather.com and all the different apps and stuff I have to look at what the temperature is going to do in this entire region, because that's going to drive potentially where I go and the path I'm going to do, just like when I went from Aurora to Salt Lake City. I went up and then over. You say, do I want to go through the snow, chain law, crashes in the chain up areas, or would I rather go through high wind when that's going to affect me less, being that I'm on a flatbed? The lesser of the evils, as they say. So that's the latest. I have yacked away a lot. It's a long video. Sorry about that. But that's the latest. I'm going to sit here. If I do not have a pre-assignment tomorrow morning, the second a pre-assignment comes through here, I'm going to jump on the clock and get that thing going. And that's when I'll do my pre-trip. And boy, do I hope they're sending me out east. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to send me up to Washington. No. They can't. I have 10 hours. Actually, technically, if I pick up tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., which they pre-assigned me and I got out there early, and I got out there and picked up something at 6 a.m., how far could I go in California in 9 hours? So they might send me to, since Sacramento is not far from San Francisco, they may send me to San Francisco and then say, now shut down. Or they may, I don't know how far away Los Angeles is from here. But they may look at it and say, well, we could have him go 400 miles. Not in California, you can at 55 miles an hour. But they might look at it and say, yes, you should be able to make it there by 3. No, I'll end up saying, should have planned better, guys. Sorry, I'm now shut down for my 34. So that thing you want to be delivering same day, it's now going to be not tomorrow, but the next day. Not today. Not tomorrow. It's going to be the next day. So 2 days late. I hate that. But it depends on what they do and how they do it. Being that I have reduced hours now, I'm only down to 11 hours. What makes sense is to send me back east. At least it makes sense to me. Because if you send me back east multiple days, you got to shut down someplace. You can't drive all the way across. Well, you actually can. Because I drove from Atlanta all the way to California and then back to Albuquerque before I ran out of hours. So and if I took off the Albuquerque, I still made it to, and then I made it to New Jersey. I made the 3 days of 650 miles roughly, a little bit less. So I basically made almost like over 1,900 miles in 3 days of the 2,777. I remember that miles. Because I did like 300 the first day, then the 1,900. No, it was more than that. Because I only had like 400 the last day, the 5th day. And I did that, and then I shut down. I dropped off, picked up, and then I went back to a truck stop, shut down, drove early the next day, and continued driving where I was going. But the long hauls, they give you extra time to get there. When they gave me the assignment from Aurora to Salt Lake City, or to Lehigh, it said must be there. What is today's date? Minus a day, minus another day. Yes, it said they gave me 4 days to get there. I was there in 1. I got, well, not the same day, but I was there the day after. But they gave me 4 days to get there. Maybe because of the snowstorm. I'm able to, every single time I'm able to undercut their estimates, except that one time right after Thanksgiving, where they waited to send me out on a job until 10:30ish or until about 10 a.m. and they sent me 260 some odd miles from South Carolina to pick up at another place in South Carolina near Spartanburg, and then to get to Atlanta. It was 260 some odd miles. We'll break that down. 65 if you're driving in speed limit 65s, 65 miles an hour is 65 miles in an hour. So that's 130 in 2 hours. That's 260 in 4 hours. And they were sending me out to pick up and off of back roads and stuff that dropped down to as low as like 35 miles an hour. And then to get all the way to Atlanta through rush hour to drop off there, not going to happen when I had less than 5 hours to do it. Plus that pause location, they like to have you in the gate before 2:45. Wasn't going to happen, especially in the traffic that you run into going 85 south. So I ended up having to park. The next day, I ended up having to drop off at 6 a.m., then go back and park again, and then I had my home time. I don't want to end up delaying shipments just because of impossible dispatches. I'm not a lazy guy. I'm a hustler. I like to get things done because I like getting another pre-assignment and getting on the road. But I am at the mercy of the loads right now. It's starting to rain again. I guess I should call it there. It's 5:45. It's dark. It's night. It's the time of year we're in, isn't it? All right, that's it. Thank you for watching.